Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey. And as always, I'm shouting out Pete from Pete versus Anxiety because this is his doing. He sends a lot of people my way. I should pay him for all the guests he sends my way. But I'm not actually going to do that because all the guests he sends my way were technically on my radar or heading my way already. He just sped up the process. But shout out Pete from Pete versus Anxiety. He was on my show. Spoiler alert, Pete beats anxiety. So spoiler alert if you didn't finish that podcast, Pete versus Anxiety. But great guy. He connected me with today's guest, and I was on her show all about humanity. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. Humanity, the positives, the negatives, what happens when you observe them for a long time with the intention, the true intention and assignment of observing them, how that changes from just your daily interactions. And we are here with Vanessa The Vivacious. I would love for you to introduce yourself, and most importantly, what does vivacious mean for everyone listening who doesn't know that word? Because honestly, I thought you were Vanessa the Vicious this whole time. I just
Oh,
realized as we
ouch.
got ready for this episode, I said, wait a minute, I'm
Hold up.
having a dyslexic moment. That's not vicious. I guess it was just your personality in the bio that gave off the vicious, but I
Oh,
misread it.
wow.
So please
Wow.
clarify for everyone.
So, first and foremost, I would also like to shout out Pete. I've invented this new sign for him. It's like kind of like upside down B. I can't really do it, but
No, you're throwing up gang signs on my show. You're gonna get me
yeah,
canceled.
yeah. Right, right. Sorry about that. Yeah. So he's a master networker, that guy, and I was lucky to meet you through him. Super excited to be here. So vivacious is being full of life and just like really like going at everything like full throttle, right? With everything you got, being vivacious, being full of life. It is something that I got as a nickname during college years, and it was one of those icebreaker games where you put an adjective to your name. And that's how that came about, Vanessa the Vivacious. Now, I can be vicious sometimes, but I'd rather be vivacious. I think it's a more worthwhile cause. And a little bit about me, I have been doing video and media work since like 2002 and in various formats. I'm from Texas, born and raised, and I got out every chance I got and traveled the country interviewing strangers and doing nonprofit work probably most of my life. And this is where we are now.
So you talk about these, adjectives. Did they have to be alliterative, or was that just a personal choice?
No, it had to be alliteration. Yes. Because supposedly there's like a mind game where if you rhyme the word with another adjective with that letter, it'll help you make a mental connection so you'll remember the name.
For sure, I think that's what I'm gonna start doing when I meet people because I meet so many people at these conferences and they all know Mr. Whiskey.
Yeah.
It's for some reason they're like hat, alcohol, Mr. Whiskey, and it's just like instant. Everyone knows who I am, and then I have a list of 50 people I just met, and I don't know whose name from whose name to whose name because I'm gonna start attaching adjectives to them. Maybe not the
Yeah.
politest ones, but as long as they have the same letter, that's all that matters. But what was it
Yeah.
about your college self that was so full of life and energy and all that?
Well, I've always been that way my whole life, just living out loud and just without reserve. I never knew any other way to live, so I entered college that way, but then it got taken away from me also in college years. So it's funny that you asked that. During my college years, I had some really, really intense episodes, mental health episodes. And so a lot of my vivaciousness and a lot of my energy was just stripped away. And it continued for many years, actually.
Hmm. We will definitely unpack that. And on the note of mental health, I forgot to mention I am wearing my quasi transformed Weeping Prophet outfit. I'm not wearing the full Weeping Prophet jacket, but I have the all black on, which is actually a reference back to when you and I both wore all black on your
Oh,
show.
I am
And
kind
you
of a
kind of
dark.
got the memo. You're kind of astrologically inclined right now with your
Hmm.
universe shirt on, but it works because all those stars are dying. They are dying. So some of them could be dead already. And for those of you who don't know what I'm referencing, because light takes so long to travel across such a vast distance, some of the stars you see in the sky at night are already dead, which is such a crazy thought, actually. It is a really interesting thought when you think about
Yeah.
it. But I want to get into you talk about mental health struggles, college. I mean, that's definitely a transitioning time period of everyone's life. There's a lot of different phases that people go through, and they're exploring their identity and their self. A lot of people get into their first relationships or their first real adult relationships. Plus, if you're not having your hand held to a degree, you may be adulting for the first time as well, with some support or none. So what really played into it? Would you say it's academics, the people, the social interactions, the adulting, a combination of all the above?
That's a very good question. I want to say that it's everything, but it was more so relationships and also the socioeconomic surroundings because I'm thrown into this environment with kids that have gone to prep schools. I went to a private university and I come from dirt floors. And so I wasn't prepared to, I guess, run at the same pace. I was a first generation college student and worked, I waited tables to even afford the bus ticket to get there. And as far as like the relationships, I was engaged to someone who had just entered the military and they wanted to make a life for us. And so they were like, okay, well, I'll go off and enlist in the army and then you go to school and then we will get back to getting married. And I wasn't prepared for the separation and that really fed into the depression and this just the culmination of what became bipolar episodes that were like full blown, like not just like mania, but like actually having hallucinations and all kinds of craziness go on. So it was a huge, huge drop. And I remember because I had to go to the hospital for one of them, or a few of them actually, but the first one, when I came back to school and I tried to catch up, and everybody was so far ahead and no one really knew how to work with me. Some people were afraid to work with me as far as like school psychologists because they don't want to get in trouble for doing the wrong thing. And then my teachers,
Mm,
at this time, this is 2002, so there's not a whole lot of research and a whole lot of medicine around bipolar disorder. So it's a really difficult time, right? A lot of the services that you have now didn't exist then. And so it was a huge learning gap and a huge gap for me as well, trying to understand what was going on. But I remember my therapist at school saying, if you don't drop this relationship, you're going to die. You're going to take your own life or something. You're going to just have a very unfortunate ending. And so I made the choice to remove myself from that relationship and things got a little bit better. But then I don't know, like most humans do, you tend to cling on to another soul. And so I saw someone else and I was like, oh, I have to know this person. And then there went the next 4.5 years.
mm. I have to very much disagree with the advice you were given. I think that teaches running away and cutting off rather than creating management skills and coping skills that are healthy and
Mm-hmm.
dealing with the. Yes, you could say, oh, well, what they were putting forward is root cause destruction, which is
Mm.
getting rid of the cause of all these symptoms, which was the relationship. But I have to disagree.
Yeah.
That's my professional, unprofessional opinion. That's my official, unprofessional opinion. But I
Yeah.
definitely disagree with that. What I think is interesting is one of the things that you mentioned was the kind of preppy environment and the foundation that everyone had compared to you. And I saw an
Mm.
amazing post today. It was a picture of an orange, and a little slice was cut out of it, and in the place was like a piece of onion or garlic. I'm
Mm.
not a chef, but it looked like some kind of food. And the caption said, "Just because you fit doesn't mean you belong." And because it fit in perfectly in the slice spot, but you could see that it definitely did not belong there, and that can be twisted in very evil
Yeah.
ways, of course. But the
Yeah.
the point I want to make is about how did you feel in terms of you made it to the college environment that they were in. That
Mm.
doesn't necessarily meant that you were one of them or were able to catch up to that. So did you have to change the way you dressed, the way you spoke? Did you try to play this game of catch up and fit in, or did you just embrace being different and kind of lean into that, or did
Mm.
being different kind of take over and push you more towards those mental health issues?
Yeah. So I thankfully had a group of friends that I cultivated in that 4.5 year period that were extremely different from everyone. They were totally alternative. They listened to punk music. They played video games all night. They went out to eat and maybe did a little other activities, but they were the best authentic people I'd ever met. And thankfully, meeting them saved me. But even without them, I can proudly say that I stuck to myself. I did not change. I did not emulate them. I didn't join a sorority. I just stayed the course and I guess, express myself creatively, whether it was music or media or poetry or something, anything creative. That was my outlet. So anytime I've ever been uncomfortable, I just put everything into some creative passion of some sort, and it makes me feel better. I don't feel the need to match anyone else's energy, because I know that authentically we all have our own energies, and everyone is comprised of different situations, different moments, different, I guess, different issues, right? We all have our own issues, and those same issues and those moments make all of us uniquely beautiful. So I had no reason to tag along or emulate anybody else. But I will say, going back to the not agreeing with a therapist, totally agree with you, but I didn't know better at the time.
Yeah.
And that fiance came back, I think like a year later, and was like, hey, all right, let's get married. And I had to tell him, like, oh, I'm sorry. I had to move on. And that crushed the both of us. And it stayed with
Mm,
me for like 20 years.
mm.
Mm,
And then that relationship that was, dare I call it, a rebound relationship that you were jumping into someone else to try to
mm.
bury all the emotions. Did that end up becoming a toxic or unhealthy relationship,
Oh,
or what happened with that?
100%.
Okay.
Sadly, I laugh about it now, but only because it's so funny. He was smart, but he was also an avid gamer. And no disrespect to people that play D&D, but he was like on the level of buying $500 figures and just dice that cost X amount of money, and putting his money and concerns into things that were part of a game as opposed to me. So yeah, into our relationship during the last months, I helped him become a stockbroker. I helped him study for it and everything. And at that point, I had to decide whether I wanted to live a life with love in it or just money and just be there in that comfort state. And I chose love, and I left.
Did you roll for it? Did you roll a dice and get a high enough number to leave, or?
No, I'm not that cool.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
I just called my brother and he picked me up and took me back home to San Antonio.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And you talked about, so what degree did you graduate college with?
I didn't. I didn't. I had to leave in my second year because I ran out of money. Even though I had scholarships and loans, I still didn't have enough money because it was 30,000 a year and I wasn't getting enough. They would separate my money into quarters, so there was no way to put it all in. So yeah, I went home my second year, and then they held on to my transcript for another, I would say probably 15, 20 years. I don't know. This is 2002. I went back to school finally again at a junior college in 2019, 2020. So many years later, I couldn't go back because they held on to my transcript and I owed them $8,000. But then one of our family members passed, paid off my debt, and then went back to school. And funny enough, the junior college professors for this radio, TV, film program were some of the best people I've ever met. And I did the most work I've ever done. I got to direct a pilot for a Mr. Rogers Neighborhood spinoff. It was so much fun. And
Was it called It's Not a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood? That would be my spin-off series. It's not a
that should
beautiful day in the neighborhood.
that needs to be the sequel. Totally. We did the premise where his grandson moved back to the neighborhood after he died, and some of the neighborhood residents were Chef Ramsay, Bob the painter. What's his name? Bob.
Bob Ross,
Bob Ross, and then for some reason the little guy with the socks from Harry Potter.
Dobby,
Yes, Dobby was
like
there.
the actor. I
The
assume.
puppet. Yeah. So we had
Okay,
someone play the puppet, and he lived outside. He was homeless. But yeah, there were some crazy characters in that neighborhood.
interesting.
Hmm.
It's an odd day in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it
Huh.
really was. But it made me want to do like a documentary at some point in the future, because it was just so cool researching about him, about Fred Rogers.
Mm.
So yeah, I went back to school eventually. I didn't graduate from the university. I won't say it. My goal was finish the 2-year program at this local college and then get a scholarship to go back and finish it off at the place that took 15 years away from me.
So I want to unpack that big gap between 2005 and 2019. You've got
Mm-hmm,
this huge space where you left. You go back to Texas.
mm-hmm.
What happens from there?
From there, I needed purpose. I've always had this affinity for doing good for others, just serving others. It was the first act of kindness I ever did as a kid. And then as an adult, having failed at school and having to go home, I wanted to do something to help people still. And so I enlisted in AmeriCorps, which is like domestic Peace Corps, right? And I went to Seattle, Washington, and I was there for a few years. And then I came back home and took care of my mom because she was getting sick. So,
Fun fact, just because I study Hebrew and Greek in the Bible, and I found I was researching the origin of minister versus pastor versus preacher, and serving others and helping others. In Greek, the term for it is diakonos, which I think is just super cool. Instead of preacher, saying I'm a diakonos. That sounds like a like an anime move. So, just fun fact for everyone: diakonos. If you like helping others, serving others, you can call yourself that.
that's
And
awesome.
yeah, so
Can you like put it on your hat, like embroider it? That would
well,
be
it
badass.
it wouldn't be an alliterative adjective for me. So I'm whiskey wise, I guess. I don't know. I haven't gotten the opportunity like yourself to attach any adjectives to me. Womanizer whiskey, that might work. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, y'all. I'm just
I'll think
kidding.
of something for you for sure.
Thank
But
you.
you know what though?
It's
I
very
feel like
vivacious of you.
you don't even need alliteration though, because when I look at you, I see nothing but big hat energy. And
Thank
when
you. Yeah, big hat
and
energy. You mentioned that
when
once
I
before,
hear
and I was like,
because
that's
it's
going to be a
so
shirt.
true. Oh yeah, like that and maybe some kind of tagline that's like, "Can I call you Mister?" That's
Yeah, I usually quote. I liked how M. Night Shyamalan for the Glass series, he had a scene where it was
mm,
like, for Mr. Glass, he goes, first name Mr., last name Glass. So sometimes I
wow.
do. I mean, Captain Michael Neely on the Podcasters Cruise, the first year around when I performed comedy, he goes, his first name is Mr., his last name is Whiskey. Mr. Whiskey for some comedy time, y'all, or something like that. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think it's interesting. And the big hat energy, that might be a t shirt. That could be on brand. But ultimately, if y'all take anything away from this episode, remember this: it's not the size of the hat; it's how you wear it. So whether it's a 10 gallon or a 20 gallon, they both are great. The black hats are as good as the white hats. They both get the job done for different occasions. And so, just keep that in mind.
Telling you
Try to
that
keep
big hat
trying
energy
to
at it again.
trying to keep a serious face while I say all this. But yeah, and lost my train of thought. But yeah, I say vivacious. You say vivacious.
No,
Is
I
that
say
correct?
vivacious.
Okay.
Mm.
Vanessa the Vivacious. No, I say vi. You
Oh,
say
you say
vi.
the vid.
Yeah, I say
I've heard that quite a few times, but I don't correct
vivacious.
folks though. I mean, it's nice to say.
Yeah.
It turned into my production company, but during that gap period when I was in Seattle, I also lost my job and my assignment and due to another mental health episode I had up there, and so I spent a little over a year homeless, which is interesting.
What I want to mention with that is, so was that mental health crisis related to the prior ones, or this was kind of a new manifestation of that?
Yeah, I think it had well, I mean, in the bipolar world, episodes can be triggered by just about anything. And so I think it was a mixture of the job, the environment, and the constant rain, the cold.
Mm.
I remember we once were assigned to a soup kitchen to feed the people coming in. And one day I was on the serving end, and a couple days later I was on the other side.
Wow. That
Mm.
is one of those powerful full circle moments. And so, how did you pivot from there?
I met people on the street that taught me how to use public services. And so that was how I stayed alive. And I spent a lot of time writing and watching people and observing the difference that happens when you have a home versus when you don't, and the way that people look at you and disregard you. People that believe that you're on drugs when you're not, people that believe you're panhandling when you're not. I never
Mm.
did it once, never panhandled once, which I'm proud of. But I don't discount those that do because they have to survive. And I was lucky to meet people in these services that would give me shelter for a day or sometimes a week. And then that's the same brother that gave me a ride home from college. He also searched for me in the streets of Seattle and took me home or bought me a bus ticket home. So it took me like I think a little over a week or less than a week, but almost a week to get home on a Greyhound bus from Washington State. And without money, it's like the longest trip ever because you're not eating that whole time. So it was really interesting to get home. And then once I did get home, I slept for like a month. I didn't want to go out. At this point, this is like
Right.
two major failures. This is college failure. This is failure at working with a major nonprofit. And so at that point, I stayed inside, and my mom, she just knew how to take care of me. She didn't ask questions. She just brought me whatever I needed. And whenever we'd go out to eat, we'd go at night when no one was around. She just knew how to take care of me. And I don't know how she did that. But that too in itself is interesting because I raised myself, but the core moments where I needed a mother, she was there for those.
Well, let's go ahead and rewind then to this idea of raising yourself. How
Mm-hmm.
did that look in your life and why?
Mm-hmm. So I was the baby of six siblings, and I think there's like four fathers in between us. And my mom was a very rolling stone type of woman. And so she had a period with alcoholism. She had a period with attachment to men that was just way beyond what it should be,
Mm,
gambling issues. She had a lot of things in front of her that kept her from seeing me and at times my siblings. But because I was the last one, I got no kind of mothering. And thankfully, I was smart enough to figure out things for myself as far as getting resources, getting money that I needed. Sometimes it may not have been legal, but I did what I had to do to take care of myself. And then I started working under the table at 13. So I was able to afford necessities to take care of myself. And then I waitressed all the way through high school. And that's what got me to the college road. But I asked her when I was 18, when I was leaving for college, I took her to breakfast and I asked her why she didn't raise me. And she said, because you didn't need me. You did it yourself. You didn't need me. There was nothing for me to do. And I'm like,
well,
that's not an answer.
that's an interesting excuse. Yeah.
I was like, dude, but everyone needs a mom. Doesn't matter whether you need them or not. You just need someone there, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that was her
Otherwise,
answer.
you end up crushing on older women the rest of your life, having struggles with that
Mm.
if you're a man or a woman, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Hmm.
Or you join the military, actually. I had a guest on the show once. She said every woman in the military has daddy issues and every man in the military has mommy issues.
You know what's weird is that, and let me ask you, have you come across someone that didn't have either? Didn't have the mommy or the daddy? Because I didn't have her, and my dad died when I was a baby, so I didn't have anyone. I had God. When I was little, my brother said, "Our dad's not your dad. You don't have a dad." And just out of nowhere, I said, "God's my dad, and he's bigger than your dad." And I just walked away, and I lived
My
with
dad could
that
beat
for
up
the.
your dad. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's
my
good.
dad can smite your dad.
Well, that is just intuition of knowing one of my favorite quotes in the Bible, actually, because of my family dynamic is, and I'm going to paraphrase here. I'm pretty sure this is verbatim, though. Though my father and mother have forsaken me, the Lord God receives me. And it talks
Mm,
about ultimately you have your earthly biological parents, and that's good and all, but you have an ultimate father in heaven who provides for you, Jehovah Jireh. So there were very few people in the military, and I will say in life in general, who have found had that classic structure of two parents, great relationship with both of them. You want to take it a step further, people who had both parents, siblings, and both sets of grandparents all happy. Very
mm,
rare find. Not in TV. You'll see it in every TV show, and I envied that growing up. But most people have an estranged relationship with at least one of their parents, or it's a skewed proportional relationship to some degree, or they just don't
mm,
have one active in their life at all. I think what's interesting with your dynamic is typically what we see is the youngest sibling is super spoiled, no rules, super taken care of. I think there comes a point, though, depending on a number of kids, where then the youngest kid just gets left with the older siblings as parents. So I think it really depends on the age gap and how many kids there are. But
mm,
we also can't speak in general terms because every family dynamic is different. What I will say is the divorce rates, the unexpected pregnancies, the toxic relationships, the abundance of those shattered homes is more now than ever before. And a
yeah.
lot of that has to do with politics, with attacks on the traditional family values, and also just the drastic sexualization in the world leading
Mm,
to pregnancies and unhealthy relationships, toxic relationships, financial bondage. And I work in domestic violence and pregnancy support and abortion alternatives. And the biggest driving factor behind abortion and people staying in domestic violence or toxic relationships is not being able to afford to raise a child or free themselves.
Mm.
And to me, that is what really breaks my heart. The fact that we have people who have private spaceships, not just jets, private spaceships. And we've got people who are killing their own children because of a lack of money. And that's not to say that people who earn their money aren't entitled to it. Ultimately, they earned it and it's their money. But if they did so immorally, then that is a conversation that is separate from that.
Mm.
And are we obligated to take care of one another? For me, as a man of faith, 100%. Even from the non religious sense, talking about humanity, because that's your specialty, I think that we are to take care of one another just out of the core essence of we're all human beings.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting that we have this mindset and ability to just hate human beings and kill one another and be so heartless.
Mm.
In my book, God versus Indomitable Human Spirit, coming out soon, I talk about emotions. I talk about one of the cases, people who have killed their siblings over a video game.
Mm-hmm.
People have killed over even smaller things than that. So the amount of emotions that humans can feel and the decisions they allow them to make is just mind blowing when you look at some of these cases for acts of sexual assault and violence and raping to actual murder to theft. The motivations of the human heart are so interesting to observe. And you observed a lot of different motivations and a lot of different acts in humanity. So I'd love to get into that period of your life.
Sure. What would you like to know?
Well,
Where do you want to
yeah, I was
start?
like that. Yeah. Well, I'd like you to start with I guess when would you say you first intentionally started observing people?
Oh, man. Okay. So when I was young and I could afford to do things, I would go to the movies and I would go to the dollar movie and watch whatever was playing because I just loved the hell out of movies and television, right? And I would study it, but I would also study the people. And so I would study the people that were watching the film, and then I'd go to the cafe next door after the movie and I'd think about the whole movie and the plot and what had happened and the characters. But then I'd also observe the people in the cafe. And then it just became this habitual thing of just watching people. And part of me remembers being completely alone and not really relating to other kids my age because my thought process and having to take care of myself was like on a far greater level. But the other part of me thinks about how beautiful it was that I was able to separate myself from everyone else and just watch them and figure out, oh, what are their motivations? Or these two people love each other. Let's look at what that looks like. And so it happened very young for me. I would say when I was 13, that was about the time where I started doing that.
Mm. And just speaking of people and the way you talk about your childhood, you kind of didn't have a childhood, you had an adulthood
Mm-hmm.
at childhood. Have you ever tried consciously or subconsciously to pursue childhood in your adult years or to nurture that child wound? Like, has it manifested in your life in any way?
No, no, because even though I had a difficult surroundings, I still found a way to have like the most fun, whether it was with myself or with other people in the coming years. Yeah, no, I had some magnificent moments. So I guess my defense for what I didn't have was making the most of what I did, no matter what it was. So,
A very mature mindset for a
oh
child to
yeah.
have. So I think that's awesome. And whatever happened to, you talked about the rebound toxic relationship you got into. I'm just curious from there to now what the relationship journey has been like.
Oh man. Well, from that period, there was a lot of revolving doors. It wasn't relationships, it was more so just people, dates, nights, going out with your friends when you're early 20s. I did a lot of that. So there was just I guess a lot of like exploration, right? Trying to figure out like what kind of person you want to be with or what kind of person you are. So that's what my relationship style was like. I didn't meet anyone serious until my 30s, I guess. And that's the husband that I have now, and we met on Plenty of Fish. And
Yeah.
I premised it by saying it wasn't like a hookup, though every other fish date was. For him, he was just trying to find a friend to talk to, and I thought, well, that's interesting. Someone actually using the platonic button for platonic reasons. Okay, and so we were friends for 2 years, and we kept each other's secrets, and we told each other things, and then we dated for 2 years, and then got married in the fifth year. So that was, I guess, the first time that I actually had someone that I could connect with, and who could give me, like, I guess they could give me something valuable, their love and their attention, and out of respect, not for wanting something from me. So that was really new for me.
So, had you ever tried to, prior to meeting your husband, had you tried to go find the military fiance that you had dumped originally?
Yeah. Yeah, yes,
I,
but
I need to
I knew
know.
he
I
was.
needed to know.
Okay. I pined for that guy for like 20 years. So yeah, I mean, but he was always in relationships or something, and we did finally catch up like last year, and have it out on Discord and just talk. And he was beyond that. He was over it like years ago, and he was like, "Look, we were just kids." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So pining for no reason. Got it. Thanks. Appreciate that. That hurt." But yeah,
So, you're not getting divorced after all.
well, I mean, I was separated, but then we kind of came back around. So I think that we change so much over time,
Of course.
and who we are, even when you get married, the who you are when you get married is not the same person that you are 10 years later. We're going on 12 years, and we're still different people, but the foundation of us, the two people who told each other things and who helped lift one another, those people are still there. But we did have a point where we separated because we were fighting too much, and I couldn't take it. And then being apart, we had a huge reset where we could see ourselves and see each other from 5,000 miles away, and have real conversations, and put the past in the past and move forward with certain goals, and having that discussion. This is what I need, this is what I want, and the other person being responsible and saying okay. And then that's how we ended back together. But yeah, the military guy didn't care about it anymore as much as I did. That was interesting to see.
Right. Well, and I think from his point of view, I mean, you had dumped him, and then he tried to get back with you, and you had already moved on. So I can understand his viewpoint to that point. I do think it's interesting that y'all did end up meeting and catching up, and that's an interesting story on its own. It could probably be an episode on its own.
Well, I mean, we
And
didn't meet up per se. We just chatted over Discord. But he was like the one that got away. He was everything. So yeah.
yeah, I've been there, done that. So I think we all have that one who got away, the one that really breaks us. In fact, I was featured in a book that's coming out where I wrote about my experience with that. So
Mm,
it's definitely leaves a lasting impact. And yeah, so we talked about observing humanity. I know you're the podcast host of Humanity 2.0 currently, and in between what we talked about, which was a young age observing people with
mm.
your movie theater nights out, to hosting a podcast, there's been a lot of in between as well with just what you did for work. So, could you tell us about that and your observation with humanity on that
Yes.
professional side?
Yeah, 1,000%. I think it was 2019 or so. I was watching TikTok one day, and I saw a video that was so incredibly moving. And it was about just asking someone, "Are you happy?" And I thought, damn, that is so awesome. And at the end, there was a call to action that said, "Hey, join our team. Be one of us. Interview strangers about happiness." And I was like, well, it could be either a really funny party story one day, or it could be something that's life changing. And it was life changing. I joined as a volunteer to interview strangers, and I went to the mall, my first one, and I got lost in the mall. And the first person I interviewed was a balloon artist. And of course, he was happy, but he just had the most profound things to say. And went home, uploaded it, and then they edited and put it up. And someone replied to the video and said, "I was planning not to be here tomorrow. And then I saw this, and I think I'm going to stay." And that just changed everything. I was just blown away by that. And so for the next 4 years, five, 4, 5, I interviewed strangers and I traveled the country and I observed them while interviewing them about happiness and then asking follow-up questions that took me on paths that I could never expect, right? Their family lives, the people they've lost, people they've loved, just all kinds of personalities. And what I took away from that in between traveling, right? It was insane. And I joined their production company as well. And I taught 3,000 plus creators how to interview strangers and I taught them how to go out and be video journalists, right? So I became this like teacher, this production manager, and then I still did the work myself. Well, after all of that time, eventually I got really tired and I took a break. And when I was ready to come back, they were like, well, we've kind of shifted. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. But then I thought about these thousands of hours of footage and things that have never been seen by people. This docu-series, they have 4 million plus followers on all their platforms, and I got to be a part of that, right? But there's all this footage that no one's ever seen where there's like these gorgeous moments of humanity showing that it's a crime not to put that out there. And so that's where the Humanity 2.0 series came from, was let me make a video series that's a companion to this podcast. And then let me interview people because I've done that for the last 5 years. Let me just continue doing that because I know how to do that. But it's not even about the knowing how to do that. It's like breathing, connecting with other humans and being able to share their story and deep dive, but to bring out the humanity in them, it's like breathing to me. And so I wanted to continue that. And I do that with the podcast. And as soon as I'm able to get a set for the year, then I'll get back on the video series and pull all that footage out and put it where it belongs with humanity.
So, of all these interviews that you have done so far, specifically the ones about happiness, what were some of the most common answers slash themes that you picked up on that really surprised you or didn't surprise you?
Family. Family was the most common of them all. But the way that
Speak for
people
yourself.
describe, yeah. But the way that people describe their family is like, oh, my mother has been there my whole life. My brother, my father, my parents that I found, I'm adopted, like all kinds of family stories. It's like you're looking at a fractal, right? Fractal of light and so many derivatives, but each one of them just unique, snowflakes even. But yeah, family was the biggest one. A lot of sweethearts, right? My partner completes me, and I love that there was always a similar moment amongst every person. Was that when we asked them the final question, which was, if you could share a message with the world, what would that be? People would like they'd take a moment to think, and you'd see like this little wrinkle, right? The thinking wrinkle in their head. Every single person, and before they gave their profound message to the world, you'd see that little thinking crease, and you can see the gears moving, but you can also see when that clarity comes to them and that message comes to them and their face just washes over like a totally different person, and it's just beautiful to watch.
For sure. I think it's so interesting. One of the things that I've done is with every faith-based guest who is a believer, I've asked them to leave us with a Bible quote, just what's on their heart right now.
Mm,
And keeping track of the overlaps and what people say, it's interesting. There's a lot of
mm,
ones that people say that are very common and go to, and every now and then you'll get this one like, wow, most people didn't even know that quote was in the Bible. And so I
mm-hmm,
think it's so neat to keep track of those in the same way. I usually have a big takeaway in every episode. If we could leave one message, what would that be? And it's always interesting to hear what people say and the overlaps. And,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
you know, what I had to ask, what is humanity to you?
Humanity to me is a collective of all of the experiences that we've ever had rolled into one, but then separated by the lives that we lead. Yet we're still connected by this thread. So I just believe that humanity going to a bad place is just not possible because we're still all connected. We're all these beings just connected. I mean, from a faith-based standpoint, you can say we're all connected by God, which is totally true. And for those that are non-believers, but they're more into physics and such, they can say we're connected by a different kind of thread. But for me, humanity is like we're all one. So we're just a series of complex memories and moments. And there's hope there because even for like 1,000 difficult situations that you see everywhere around you, there's far more positive ones that are happening at the same time. So I think that humanity 2.0, which is us being closer, us being more kind and compassionate without even thinking about it, I think we can get there.
And so, follow up question. The question that you asked for so many years, I'll now ask you, which is happiness. Just with a question mark at the end. Because I don't
Okay,
know
well,
the full question. So,
oh, the
happiness.
happiness question, it was just, are you happy?
Okay. Are you happy?
Yes. Yes and no. I'm happy that before coming here, and the reason why I was late was because I was preparing dinner for my family from scratch because I like to cook for them, especially when I have moments where I'm not working like a horse. I do that. So I'm happy for that and being able to still have a table to have them around. I'm not happy because I was supposed to write a script and submit it this morning and I didn't make it. So I'm not happy about that. But in the grand aspect of things, I should not be here. There were so many times that I should have died and I'm here. And so for every day that I wake up, yes, I'm super happy to be here. No idea why the hell I'm still here, but I just make it a point to make every day mean something. Because there's got to be a reason why we're here.
100%. Well, Ms. Vivacious, thank you so much for your time today. I will have, what you do in the description below for people to check out your podcast. And we definitely look forward to, as we move into 2026 here, the big plans you have with all the video footage and everything else coming out. And I just want to thank you again for your time today and for guesting. I think this has been a great episode. And I would like to have you back on for just, I call it Breakfast and BS. It was a podcast I wanted to start when I was working as a waiter. Just based
Mm-hmm.
off of all the stories, because you
Yes.
already know if you were
Oh,
waitressing for that
we're
long, I know you've
family.
got stories.
Oh,
But I
hells
didn't want to bring
yes.
them up in this episode. We'll do a
Oh,
separate
no
episode for
worries.
that
Oh my God, I'm
because
here for it.
working people don't realize the behind the scenes of the restaurant industry. I've been threatened, almost stabbed. There has been felons versus military members in the kitchen, people with grills that say death on them. Not the
Mm-hmm.
kitchen grill, their gangster grill. There have been what happens when the boss has children who work at the restaurant and show up and take the best tables and then leave a mess but take the money. There's a lot that goes on,
So
especially
much. So
drama.
much.
Yeah, there's a lot
Oh,
of in-house dating that then furthers the drama. And oh
fraternization with
no,
married
the
people.
cook's baby mom, yeah, I was just about to say the cook's baby mama comes in to order food, but he's sleeping with the hostess puts sparkle glitter makeup on her cleavage. I These are real stories. So
Mm-hmm.
you and I will have an episode about that for sure. But thank you today for sharing about humanity. And I think one of the most important things about humanity, one of the best parts, a privilege that we have compared to any other existing creature, is our ability to communicate with one another globally, from culture to culture, race to race, and to have conversations across generational conversations from people much older to much younger, and to talk beyond time. This conversation might be being listened to right now, and you and I are dead, or alive. Maybe we're vivacious, full of life. But I think that's so cool that we have the ability to connect with one another. I think that's something we've lost in the heated political landscape of America is conversation. And in fact, honestly, I'll come out and say it. We have people being killed for having
Mm-hmm.
conversation. So I think we need to restore humanity to being a connected entity where we are talking with one another. I feel like that's the bare minimum, and a privilege and a gift that many abuse. So
Mm-hmm. And your show in itself, it connects with people. What you say resonates with people. And so by you connecting with even just one person, your whole purpose for being here and having your show, it's worth it.
100%. And you talked about that one-to-one thing. And so I just want to remind everyone listening that your single interaction with someone today could be very life-changing. This show started from a single conversation. I've had episodes with guests whose suicides were stopped by a single conversation. Check on one another, especially around this holiday season more than ever. But definitely throughout the year, be checking in on one another, even more so the people closest to you are sometimes the people hardest to tell that there's something wrong. So ask that question of, are you okay? And go deeper than just a 5 minute conversation. But again, Ms. Vivacious, so great to have you here, and I can't wait to have you back on.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. And don't ever lose that big hat energy.